Yo, what is up? Welcome to Ninja Geek Games, where in this episode we'll be looking at the anticipated Apex Legends, the board game that is currently live on Kickstarter. Briefly, Apex Legends is a Battle Royale online game set in the distant future at the end of a great war. Here, legends settle their differences in the Apex games, where you compete for money, fame and glory. Glass Cannon Unplugged have brought this to the table in a 2 to 4 player skirmish game where you'll need to equip your legends with a vast array of weapons, upgrades and items, drop into the battle zone and use tactics best suited to your character to survive. Now, what I have here is a prototype version of the game, so any rules and components may change from what you see in this video. If you want to take a look at all the components, legends and add-ons, then I'll add a link to the Kickstarter in the description. What I'm going to look at is the 4 base game legends and the 1 scenario that I was provided with, and let you know what I think of the game and the mechanics. If you want a complete playthrough of the game, then check out Gaming Rules video, where Paul Grogan and I teamed up against Adrian and JP from Whose Turn Is It Anyway in an epic 2v2 battle, and I'll put a link to that in the comments. So, the scenario and game I have is a 2v2 skirmish representing the near-end battle of the online game. Your legends are already armed to the teeth, although there's always room for improvement, and you'll need to work together to take out the opposition. To do this, you'll need to use cover in buildings to your advantage, loot items on the map, and make use of tactical cards providing bonus abilities and actions for your legends. Not only that, all players will have to contend with an ever-decreasing battle area due to shrinking of a ring wall that will damage all legends caught outside. Let's take a look. The base game comes with 4 well-known legends that include Bangalore, Gibraltar, Wraith and Bloodhound. Now each of these is represented by a really cool mini, and they all have a player board, a deck of unique feat cards, special tokens as well as terrain pieces. The player board has areas to mark your basic start of game items that include a mediocre helmet, body shield and a lockdown shield, and a backpack area where any claimed loot can be stored. Each legend also has 2 ability cards that include a tactical ability and an ultimate ability, and these can be used during play and can be devastating but take time to both activate and recharge. The first thing you'll need to do is split into red and blue teams and have players draft legends. After quite a few plays, I can tell you they all play very differently with some weird and wonderful abilities. Now, I've never played the online game, so my Apex lore is very limited, but from what I understand of the tabletop game, Bloodhound is a tracker, and they can mark enemies with ravens and gain ranged combat bonuses. Wraith is a very agile legend with the ability to place and slide through dimensional rifts, meaning they can cover great distances when moving. Bangalore is a tactical specialist that can call in airstrikes and launch smoke grenades that provide cover, and Gibraltar seems to be the squad tank who can deploy a protective dome, cleverly called the Dome of Protection, and can set up a large-scale mortar attack. Your biggest challenge to start with is deciding which legend to control, because they all have fantastic abilities. Gibraltar can absorb a great deal of damage with some of their feat cards, and Wraith can gain an excessive amount of movement, so not only do you need to decide on which legend to play with, you may want to see where your abilities can support your teammate. The scenario included in this game comes with a selected map layout detailing where buildings, walls, loot crates and respawn points are placed, and the objective is to try and take out each opponent once, noting that legends can respawn. The game has 3 phases. First is the loadout phase, where players within their teams get to equip weapons and attachments, swap out armour and gain items like shield cells, medkits and even grenades. Remember, the premise for this scenario is that you've already beaten other teams and looted, and now you're going in for the win, so you're more geared up than Rambo. The second phase is where legends drop into the map with the possibility of gaining a tactical advantage through movement and extra loot. The last stage is the final encounter and bulk of the game, where teams take turns carrying out actions to meet the mission objective. Let's take a look. Before play, all characters are able to load up their legends with gear to take into battle. The game comes with a huge deck of oversized cards to represent a variety of ranged weapons to include shotguns, SMGs, sniper rifles and pistols, and all other equipment comes in the form of tokens from 3 classes that are common, rare and epic items. Each player gets to select just 2 weapons from a hand of 5, so choose wisely. You also get a random handful of loot tokens from the common and rare classes too. Medkits and cells are vital, as they can recover both your health and shield value during the game. Each player initially starts with 40 health and 20 shield shown on this bulky dial, but as you take hits during the game your shield value will become depleted, followed by your health, and once this reaches 0 this causes a casualty and you'll need to respawn. Your starting equipment can also be upgraded with any items that you've received, and these just get swapped out. So here I've received a helmet and a better body shield, and when receiving the body shields you'll instantly increase your shield value. In most circumstances, your weapon selection is generally tied into which attachments can be fitted. I mean, sniper rifles are nice, but if you have no attachments available, then it'd be better to take another weapon that can be modified. Each weapon card shows the number and type of attachments that they can have. So this pistol can have 2 attachments, where the assault rifle can have 4. What you need to do is match up your tokens to the weapon, either by the ammo symbol shown here, or by the location of the attachment icon on others. After trial and error, you'll finally have a legend armed to the teeth and ready to be dropped into battle. So my legend has 2 decent weapons with a variety of attachments, an upgraded helmet and body shield, and other items that include medkits, shield batteries, and a couple of grenades. The loadout phase is a great part of the game that I really look forward to doing every time. First, if you get syringes, grenades or shield cells, stick them in your backpack, you'll need them. Some tokens can be stacked so you can have multiple versions of the same items, saving space, and grenades come in 2 forms based on the area of attack. The weapons are vast, from short-range powerful shotguns to deadly sniper rifles, and all will have different stats for best range, fire rate and hit threshold, as well as the damage they cause. Weapons may even include special abilities that include being able to move after firing or taking careful aim shots, and they all have a limited ammo count. This game comes with multiple tokens for each type of ammo, but we just used a die or small cubes placed on the weapon card as it's far easier to track. The attachments that can be added to weapons during the loadout phase include stocks that can increase damage, optics that reduce your hit threshold, extended mags that allow you to draw more aim cards when firing, and barrel stabilizers that modify where the aim cards are placed when shooting. But we'll discuss all this later in combat. You can also swap out your starting items where your initial shield value will increase, or with upgraded helmets that can help defend against those well-aimed headshots, and these don't take up extra space, they just replace the existing ones. Soon enough you'll end up with a badass legend. What's more, you can even trade items with your teammate. So if they have an attachment for a weapon that you want to use, or excessive medkits and grenades, they can pass them on to you, where you'll more than likely see a little fist pump from a few players. Any other items you don't want or can't utilise can still be stored in your backpack because they may be of use later. Now we're kitted out, we need to drop in. So this is just a quick battle map that I created, where we have stacked buildings, walls, cover, as well as a few loot crates and respawn points. The whole map is covered with a small grid that is primarily used for player movement, line of sight and range. All legends will drop in from the sky, but we have some control of where they want to land based on tactical decisions and a bonus for choosing a particular board edge. This is the entrance board, representing a very small version of the main board. On each edge it has 1 random reward as well as an epic loot token visible to all players. Legends will then take turns alternating between teams, selecting a board edge in both tokens. The epic loot token can be equipped immediately, but the rewards will be one of 2 types. You'll either get a rare loot token that you can draw and equip to your legend, or a move bonus that allows you to move further into the map. Once you've selected your reward, you then get to place your legend on the designated board edge where you can move into the map, again moving further if you took this reward. With the drop-in, you have 2 schools of thought. If there is a spicy epic loot token you want, you may forgo map positioning to take advantage of upgrading your weapon or starting gear further. Or perhaps you really want to start on a particular side of the board where you have cover, high ground and a loot crate nearby, as well as being able to move deeper into the map. You can also talk to your teammate to decide who selects first. Maybe you're just an ass and you know the enemy desperately need that sniper optics from the epic loot token. You don't currently have a suitable weapon, but you could get one later. If you are feeling particularly confident, you could even drop in on a board edge already selected. You don't get any rewards for this, but you'll certainly make the opponents nervous. Once you've dropped in, you are ready to start the final phase of the game, which is to hunt down and destroy the enemy. There are a number of actions a legend can take. They can move, that includes climbing buildings and vaulting walls, attack with ranged weapons or melee combat, and interact with loot crates and items in their backpack. Other actions include respawning, but you can't do this unless defeated, and you can destroy obstacles on the map, but this action isn't available in this scenario. There are other actions available, such as using unique skills on your ability or feat cards. Some of these may be free to use. During a single round, each team will take turns activating their legends with 2 action points. First the red team will activate, then the blue team. Once complete, the round ends where players draw feat cards and determine whether any legends take damage for being outside the ring wall. Every 3 rounds this ring wall will shrink, getting smaller and smaller, so the battle map does become cozy. This scenario ends when a team has met the objective or after a specific number of rounds. Let's take a look at the actions. During a turn, legends get 2 action points, and these can be spent in various ways. Movement is simple, where a legend can move 2 spaces in any direction. Climbing a building or jumping over an obstacle or wall will cost you 1 movement point, and you can never directly climb 2 floors with 1 movement. An interact action allows you to open up loot crates that provide loads of goodies. The contents of a loot crate is determined by a stack of cards, and these show a number of loot tokens and the class that they belong to. Here you can take any item you want, either equipping them or storing them for later use. Anything you don't want can be dropped for scavengers later. You'll also get the option to draw a weapon card to replace one you already have or increase the ammo count on a gun. With the use action, you can also make use of any items in your backpack. Here you can restore your shield, recover your health, or even throw a grenade. Each grenade shows a different blast effect area, and these can be thrown blindly over walls. However, they're not always accurate, and you need to draw an aim card to determine where the grenade lands. Sometimes you're lucky, other times not so much. Firing a weapon is great fun. You first select your target, the weapon, and then the hit threshold. Each weapon card shows a number of stats that you need to consider when shooting. First is the hit threshold, and this is the target number that you need to score to hit, and in this case it's 50. Second is the range. Each weapon card shows the gun's optimal range, and this is measured in spaces between the active legend and the target. If the target is at or within the specified range, then there are no modifiers to the hit threshold. For every space the target is outside the range, whether closer or further away, there is a negative modifier of 10 to the hit threshold for every single space. Next we look at the fire rate, which determines how many aim cards we get to draw, and in this instance it's 5. These are the aim cards that are numbered to determine if a hit has been scored when firing. Once you've determined the fire rate, the drawn aim cards are placed face down on the aim board, starting at 0, with the remaining cards being placed adjacent and to the right. The next step is to reveal the cards one at a time to determine if the card value matches or beats the hit threshold on the weapon card, remembering to subtract the modifiers from this area. So here, this SMG's fire rate allowed me to draw 5 cards with a hit threshold of 50. Taking these modifiers into account, I've scored 3 hits, and I now refer to the weapon card to see what damage I caused. The weapon's base damage value is 6, so with 3 hits, the enemy legend takes 18 points worth of damage. This is first taken off the shield, and then the health. Okay, seems fairly simple so far, but let me expand. Firstly, this aim card mechanic for range combat is a fantastic system, meaning you essentially have unlimited range, but will suffer with having a high hit threshold value to meet, possibly wasting the limited and valuable action points. Also, this mechanic is subject to further alterations through clever use of weapon attachments and line of sight. When shooting, you must have line of sight, meaning you can draw an uninterrupted line between the center spaces of the attacker and the target, and this can be blocked by walls, buildings, and even due to elevation. Then the weapon's range needs to be taken into account. As mentioned, if the target is outside the optimal range, your hit threshold value is increased by 10 points for each space, making it much more difficult to hit. But if you've been savvy with your attachments, upgraded optic tokens on your weapon card can reduce this number. This could mean if the target is slightly outside the range, it's counterbalanced. But if within range of both weapon and optics range, then you have a much better chance of scoring a hit. As you saw, each weapon allows you to draw a specific number of aim cards. The more cards you draw, the more likely you are to score a hit, but with each aim card placed, the aim board reduces the card value by 5. I take this to mean the gun drifts during shooting, which is pretty cool. A few things to consider with other attachments. Stabilizer attachments allow you to shift all of your aim cards on the aim board. This means that rather than starting on the 0 space and descending into negative modifiers, you start on a positive modifier to their aim card value. Not only that, if you equipped an extended magazine, you get to draw an extra aim card for that shot. However, some guns with heavy shots have the recoil trait, meaning the gun drastically moves during firing. This is represented by having gaps between each card on the aim board. What's more, other weapons allow multiple cards to be sacked in the same spot, keeping the same modifier. Therefore, weapons with optics, extended magazines and stabilizers have huge benefits with increased number of hits, lower thresholds to reach and positive modifiers to drawn cards. It's awesome. Each hit will cause damage to be dealt, which varies for different weapons. Some high damage guns have low fire rates, so you draw less aim cards for instance. But additional damage can always be dealt in a number of ways, such as stock attachments providing an ongoing damage modifier to that weapon. Also, a number of aim cards have special icons that are activated if drawn. When revealing aim cards during range combat, any that scored hits and showed this red skull icon are headshots, and these deal extra damage on top of the card's base damage value. This semi-hit icon means nothing, for now, but if 2 are drawn in the same shot, then it's an automatic hit regardless of the card value. This green arrow is an elevation advantage symbol. I have the high ground, Anakin. Again, regardless of the card value, if the target is on a lower level than you, it's an automatic hit. The red arrow is basically the opposite. You're Anakin. If your target is on a higher level, then it's an automatic miss. Lastly, the cover symbol means that if the legend is a target and adjacent to a cover tile, it's an automatic miss. I love how combat is carried out. It's so variable, but not in a random way. It seems clunky at first, but you'll be very surprised with how smooth the system plays. You just need to make note of attachments, range and passive abilities of your weapons. Drawing and revealing aim cards is quite tense. Even if the card value doesn't meet the weapon hit threshold, then headshots, elevation and the semi-hit icons can be relied upon, although those icons are quite rare within the deck. But if your legend has an upgraded helmet, they may be able to negate a headshot, which is always welcome. On top of the actions discussed, your legend also has use of the deck of feat cards and 2 ability cards providing some very unique abilities. I'm not going to go into detail of every single feat card, but your legends can make use of these in a number of situations. They can gain bonus actions, cause a specific effect to occur, and can be played during combat to enhance the shot or as a reaction to being shot. What's more, some can even be played to support your teammate, but the cards are limited and once used they are out of the game. If desperate, you can ignore any text on the card and instead play them as a rush for an extra space of movement during your turn, but this should only be used if absolutely necessary. Legends have access to 2 ability cards for the whole game, but need to be activated, and these can be used over and over again to some extent. Gibraltar can deploy a very cool looking protective dome that can prevent any form of attack into or out of the area. They can also set up a mortar attack represented by Mini that will show where the area of attack will be. Likewise, Bangalore can place an area of attack model which is an airstrike, and this usually moves across the board over time. They can also place smoke that provides cover in the form of negative modifiers to hit thresholds when shooting. Bloodhound can go on the hunt, gaining movement and bonuses to range combat, and can also deploy ravens to mark enemies. Wraith is able to place portals at different locations and move through them, covering great distances very quickly. Now, what I like here is the duration and cooldown effect of the special abilities. For instance, the Dome of Protection will last a number of team turns. The airstrike from Bangalore will detonate in a later round and then move, detonating again in further rounds. This is all recorded on a nice turn tracker with tokens for that ability, so when a particular team reaches that turn later, the token is removed and the effect is actioned. Once used, the ability needs to be recharged with a cooldown period. The ability token is then placed on the round track, allowing you to determine when that action becomes available again. This is great for a number of reasons. Area attacks give you warning, meaning you need to bug out or take some hefty damage. These are perfect for blocking areas of the map or funneling legends into a killing field. You can even get loot items that provide automatic cooldowns, which are an absolute must if you can get your hands on them. These abilities are brilliant and unique to each legend, meaning you get a very different playing experience with each one. Every 3 rounds the ring wall will shrink, forcing you into a tighter space, but you do have knowledge of how the wall will move. At the start of the game, a card is drawn showing which corner pieces of the wall will move and how far. This gives you just 3 rounds to ensure you're inside the safe zone, and once moved you draw another card for the later rounds, and I'm sure fans of the online game will think this is a great adaptation for the tabletop game. Once defeated, you can even drop in at respawn zones, so there's no player elimination as such. I really enjoyed this game, even though I have no knowledge of the online game. This was just the basic standard scenario, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what other scenarios will be included in the complete game. Each of the legends are a joy to play, and I really like the way teamwork is involved. The combat system is highly intuitive and exceptionally thematic to how I'd expect ranged combat to play out. Even the loadout phase is an absolute blast to do, discussing your options with the teammates and creating your legend. Melee combat is a bit basic, but I can only assume it's rarely used in the online game, and found this to be similar in the tabletop version. Draw an aim card with a value of 40 or more and it's 4 damage, and you can push the target 1 space. Regardless, this scenario was very enjoyable, where I've played every legend in various combinations and still want to play it again, and that's just one scenario. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. This is Ninja Geek Games. Cheers.